the antisocial network.
Yeah. Mask up, stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Welcome once again to Yeah with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron. This week we're joined by Tim Lighttell, and we're talking about the Pee Wee Herman documentary.
That's right.
Tim has previously been on the show with the movie, talking about Pee Wee's movies. So
yeah,
I'm sorry I interrupted you. Tim, go ahead.
Am I on? No, I was interrupting you. thanks for having me back. Thanks so much for having me back.
It's always a pleasure to have you on. You've been on 3 times.
Like getting reinvited. I know. It's cool.
This is your 3rd episode. I guess we're gonna have to mail you a little ribbon.
That's right. You're be part of the
Three-Timer Club.
The exclusive Three-Timers Club, yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So your movie is Manbaby, or was Manbaby. I'm wondering if you have any other movies going on at the moment.
No, I got it. So when was the last time we talked? We talked maybe a year ago. Has it been that long? Has it been over a year or less?
Probably been a year.
Yeah.
I think it might be.
There's probably the movies of 1986, maybe.
And when did we do that? Did we do that a year ago, or
more like a year and a half ago?
We did the Pee Wee. Did the Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
We did that.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That's got to be 2 years ago for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, it's hard to believe how much time has passed. I mean, since the last time you were on, we bought a new house.
Okay, nice.
We sold
Congratulations.
our house successfully. We remodeled.
Right, I remember that. I remember that was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, we remodeled half of our house, and that was not fun.
Yep.
Elected
a dictator.
Yeah, elected a dictator.
Yes.
We were not responsible for that.
No. Neither was I.
We've kind of covered.
We started going to protests.
Right. Yesterday was the Big No Kings. I saw some of your pictures on Facebook.
Right.
Yeah. We went to that. It was tame as can be. I mean, the police were sitting on their bikes, eating popsicles and waving. That's how it was. There were no fights. There was no contentiousness. As you know, great. I'm a wheeled American, and we were in a very, very hilly area. In fact, we knew it was hilly, but I think they've added more hills.
It seems that way.
For the protest.
And you guys are in Ohio, is that correct? Or
Cincinnati.
Ohio. Yeah, Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It was the University of Cincinnati campus. And they did it because part of the No Kings was like defunding the library and attacking, colleges. Plus, it's a very popular area. But I feel like maybe what with parking and so on, but we had over 5,000. There were people who actually did march, and then there were people who were by the side of the roads.
Right. Well, it was difficult for us, but it's not like bottle service. This is supposed to be difficult.
If they do Clifton again, maybe we should place me in the fan section.
They wanted to use Clifton because it was the university and the fight that's going against colleges and stuff like that. But this is not
it's uphill every direction though to get to that school.
Right. Pretty much.
It is. It's
it's that. When I was going to school, I had to march uphill in the snow.
I did go to that school for a little while, and I do remember going uphill and uphill and uphill.
It's making one of the highest spots in the city.
Yeah,
McMakin Hall. So, but so we're here to talk about Pee Wee, and I thought it was
Pee Wee plays himself. Pee
Wee as himself.
Yeah,
as himself. Right.
Should say Paul Reubens, not Pee Wee necessarily.
Well, the name of the documentary is Pee Wee as himself.
Pee Wee as himself, right? Which was the title card in Pee Wee's Big Adventure, right? I think it says Pee Wee as himself was the title.
That's a good fun fact.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about Pee Wee's Big Adventure that first time, that's kind of my big takeaway from the whole movie. That's my big picture takeaway is like the conceptual art kind of piece of Pee Wee is the thing that stays with me.
I mean, he
Tim
literally is like what 20-year method actor,
Right.
and he just became Pee Wee. He completely allowed Paul Reubens to be subsumed.
Let me
Mm-hmm.
prepared a video of the trailer. We'll just go ahead and play it a little bit. I don't know if I'll go through the whole trailer. It's like 2.5 minutes, but I'll play a
Oh,
little.
nice. We can play a little with the new restream. As I wanted to also say thank you for letting me be part of the new stream. What is this restream?
Yeah,
Your new,
the anti-
Yeah, we're on a
social
new
network.
network here.
your new network. That's really cool. Congratulations on that.
See, I had a little
Wow.
accident
Lisa
with
just
some
dumped
part of it.
coffee all over the keyboard. So if we
Uh-oh.
if we go out, that'll
Yeah.
be why.
I'm sorry, hon.
You're still coming through. You're still coming through.
There's smoke coming up now through the. No, just kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm having a party and you're invited.
It's weird to be in this situation having a documentary made because I'm used to having control of my alter ego. I wanted to be a performance artist. I could show you my characters. Out of nowhere, Pee Wee Herman popped out of me. The audience ate it up and went crazy.
When I first saw Paul as Pee Wee, I was like, who is this little man in this bow tie? And why is he throwing Tootsie Rolls at people?
Hollywood had taken notice. I mean, how could they not?
I remember thinking, this is going to be really big.
There wasn't like a moment in the 80s that wasn't super cool to be me. And then dark music. Bum, 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 bum. I lost control of my anonymity, and it was devastating. I don't want to come off like a victim in some way. I kept who I was a secret for a really long time. I hid behind an alter ego.
Today's secret word is fun.
I want kids to learn, not only is being different okay, let's celebrate it, but I want that not just for you, but for myself. Death is just so final. To be able to get your message in at the last minute is incredible.
He was so private. It was challenging for him to do the documentary, but he took a leap of faith. He wanted people to see who he was as Paul.
I'm flying.
All these different emotions, all these different influences and factors. I was like a good vessel for it all. I'm gonna leave out the part where we did enormous amounts of drugs. Oh, I didn't.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to stop it, so we went ahead and played the whole thing. But
Hey, so it worked. And it's now, and we're back.
yeah. Fortunately, it wasn't the whole doc because we'd be here 3.5 hours later.
Yeah.
Here for 4 hours. Yeah.
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 But
And maybe a copyright claim.
well, he did a good job in this teaser. The preview, Lisa and I, when we go to the movies, it's like, are we here for
Yeah.
the movies or previews? And I thought that was a good one.
Mhm.
They pretty much
Yeah.
encapsulated what the doc was going to be about.
Definitely.
So it very much is a origin story, starting when he was born, when in his childhood. I know they moved to Sarasota, Florida when he was younger, very young, and Sarasota is a place we're somewhat familiar with. That's where the Reds used to train. We took a spring training vacation there one year. But what I didn't know is that the Barnum and Bailey Circus used that as their winter home. And so that's where
Right.
Yeah, I
he
didn't know
joined
that
the
either. That's
actually,
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
cool.
was cool.
Um,
That was cool.
and Pee Wee, I don't know if he was actually
As a
in
child,
the show.
he went to circus camp.
Yeah, circus camp.
Hmm.
Right. He did that circus camp. Yeah. I guess concurrently when I was watching it, I was reading a book about the history of sideshows.
Mhm.
And so I knew that about Sarasota, because there's a pretty big history of sideshow folk and circus folk wintering in Florida. So yeah, it was interesting.
Right.
But yeah, no, I thought it was a great great documentary for sure. And
Yeah, it was really well done.
Just like the
I
trailer says,
like
very
the
very
fact that
poignant, very poignant.
Yeah,
Now I don't. Oh,
He's-
I'm unclear if he saw it before he passed.
I don't
he
think
couldn't
did.
have.
I don't think so.
Right,
Yeah, I don't think
right.
so.
So,
think
I
so.
mean, on the one hand, it's kind of sad because it really did turn out very well, and he was
Right.
very concerned about it. I feel like it was very respectful. It treated everything with. I felt like it was very neutral. It didn't show, this is what I think. So it was very newsy in that respect. I really liked that about it. I'm sorry, Aaron, you were about to speak.
Oh, yeah, something about the very end. The last quote from him was from the day before he died. But that was the
Right.
fascinating part to me, was that the filmmakers had no idea that he'd been fighting cancer for, what was it,
Right.
6 years?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he
it's
decided
impossible for
to
him
do
to have
the
seen
documentary.
the doc. And in fact, he was still fighting to, he didn't want to finish the interview about his arrest, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I mean, that's a big part of the plot, I think. But the thing that I took from the first half of the movie or the documentary was that his parents, it was implicit that they were pretty supportive of him.
Mm-hmm.
His father had been in the Israeli Air Force, I think. And they described him as kind of like a man's man, kind of surly and, kind of a tough guy. And his mom was supportive. And that's not always the case with someone who has creative ambitions the way
He was a stunt pilot who trained the Israeli Air Force.
Okay.
When they
Right.
first
I was surprised how much he looked like Pee Wee too, but kind of like a buff butch version of Pee Wee, which was kind of interesting.
Right. Like Pee
You
Wee
have to
Until he got
wonder-
older, he didn't look much like Pee Wee anymore, I don't think.
Right. That's true. Some of those old pictures, though, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah. His dad, when he was young, there was you could see Pee Wee in there, or could see
for
Paul,
sure.
I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then he went on to high school and then college, and he was part of a theater troupe in college. He seemed like he was kind of a catalyst, kind of a leader in that group, along with Knight Rider, David Hasselhoff, and Katie Seagal was in his class.
Yeah.
He was kind of avant-garde,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of his work, they showed him where he was portraying Christ on a cross, probably reciting some kind of writing that he had done or something. And then there was other things where he was, more like stream of consciousness, like stuff, just very much an artistic kid.
Yeah, he admired Andy Warhol, off the beaten path, but it's extremely artistic.
Yeah. I thought that's where you got a good background of the guy because he's so linear. Pee Wee's, like you said, the method acting, he was so locked into that you really didn't know squat about any other part of his life. I thought the film did a good job.
Yeah. I was sort of I was interested in that aspect, of Pee Wee forever. And the documentary definitely gave more detail about that, the kind of the origins of that. I also just watched, and I'll recommend this to y'all too if you like the Pee Wee documentary. I watched the Andy Kaufman documentary.
I think we've. Is it a newer one?
Thank you very much. Yeah, the new one. It's a brand new
okay.
one. It's called Thank You Very Much.
Because we've seen,
I highly recommend it.
2 or 3 other ones.
There's a bunch. This came out, I think, just this year or maybe late last year.
Yeah,
But,
I think his sister or somebody was on Marin maybe talking about it not too long ago.
Yeah, no, I think his ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend,
Lynn, I can't think of her name, Lynn something. But and she was on the Mark Maron podcast. And it actually, and it kind of related to the Pee Wee, when the Pee Wee documentary came out and that trailer came out, I was excited, but I actually watched the Kaufman documentary first. And I think there's some interesting parallels because it is kind of that same what is it called?
Everybody
soil, I
thought
guess,
he was
right? The same
Latka
soil
for a long time. Yeah,
right. Right, exactly. And I think like Pee Wee, what's interesting about Pee Wee though is like Pee Wee made it mainstream. Like I don't think Andy Kaufman ever kind of figured out how to, like, he was on Taxi, which was a big show, but like you know, there's some big differences, and I think like Pee Wee definitely learned how to like, and I guess Andy Kaufman died too, but
Kaufman
you know,
was kind of
he
a
didn't have
shock
time to.
performer.
Right, exactly. It was just like his conceptual art was a bit too much I think for some people, whereas Pee Wee's was shocking, but in a weirdly wholesome,
Pee Wee knew where to pull back.
Yeah.
Kaufman
Somehow
had
I
that
think
Tony, what was it, Tony something? He was like an obnoxious lounge singer that would
Tony
insult
Clifton,
everyone.
Tony
Clifton.
there's no Tony Clifton in Pee Wee's universe, you know, which is
he'd wrestle women and
but again, that same sort of like conceptual art of the, I guess, you know, really 60s, I guess, is when that kind of started, and those guys learning that stuff on the streets, like just like Pee Wee, right? Like Pee Wee with the Groundlings and Andy Kaufman at the Improv
and the Circus Folk.
And the Circus Folk, right. There's a longer history, I guess, than just the 60s. It's probably, you know, it probably goes back to vaudeville of, you know, being in character, staying in, you know, your character off screen being your on screen persona. But I, you know, for me, that's my entry point, I guess. Now, you know, when I was a kid, I just thought Pee Wee was funny. I just liked, you know, I just thought he was funny. Now as an adult, I can appreciate the artistry of it. You know, it is very.
Now, were you a Pee Wee Playhouse
kid
viewer?
Yes, I was a Pee Wee's Playhouse kid for sure. Every Saturday morning, I have very, very, you know, strong memories of both Playhouse and the movie. So I'm pretty sure I saw Playhouse first though, and then watched the movie. The movie came out in '86, I believe.
I think so.
But
Year
I think
after I graduated from high school, I saw it in the theater.
I did too.
In the theater.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
I had to see it on VHS. Yeah. I definitely saw it.
We had a dollar cinema, and literally my entire social life in 1986 was going to the movies for $1. You know.
Sure.
And I mean, we would go maybe 2-3 days a week, even.
Yeah.
But you right up until it closed, because they never actually paid for the movies they were showing. But that went on for like 5-6 years.
Yeah,
so,
I love dollar theaters were great. We had one in my town. You know, growing up, I can't remember when it closed, but yeah. I saw Eyes Wide Shut at the Dollar Cinema actually.
Yeah, I saw The Matrix at a dollar cinema.
Nice.
Those were great. That's
a theater.
I'd say 1985, 1986, and probably 1987. You know, before I really got into like my job and a job, maybe even up to 1990. You know, the dollar cinema was my best friend, and we were there every weekend if we, you know, because most of my friends were younger and they weren't allowed to in the clubs yet.
Right.
You know, if we did try to go to a club,
the clubs were a lot more than $1.
Even though they were younger than me, I looked older. I mean, younger than them. I looked like 16. I was being carded at the movies until I was 27. So nice. I would go first, show my ID. They would look at my ID, see I was 21, and just wave my friends in who looked older, even though they were younger. In fact, one of my friends, she turned 21 the first time they carded her, and we had been going there for over 2 years. They did let her in.
At least it wasn't a bar.
Right. It was just a dance club. We didn't, you know, we didn't really drink.
Force Fair
Mall,
probably.
No, it was a bar. There was drinks.
I thought you were talking about the movie theater.
No, the movie theater was not a bar. No.
I thought they were waving you in at the movie theater. They were waving you in at the club. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now movie theaters are bars, right?
Yeah, now they are.
Card them at the movie theater. No, they just carded me.
Well,
But,
those dollar cinemas was great because really
Mhm.
for most people, it's the experience of going to the movie rather than what the movie is. Unless you're like
Sure.
really persnickety about like your Marvel movies and all that
Sure.
iconography and shit. Most times it's just I want popcorn. I want to sit here and turn off the phone and for a couple hours and see previews and shit. So it is sad that those are
And
gone.
of course, I didn't have a phone.
But like
Right.
Okay.
So Pee Wee moves on to, of course, meeting Andy Warhol seemed like a seminal moment for him. They brought that up. That seemed to be a really big turning point for him. But then he goes on and he does, like you said, he does join Groundlings, where he meets people like Phil Hartman and
Lorraine
Newman and Gilbert Gottfried. And
Gottfried,
a lot of
was,
those people graduate to
the
SNL.
competition.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Gottfried wasn't a groundling, but
Not a groundling. Yeah, he wasn't a
They
groundling.
were both up for the same SNL spot, and
Mhm.
they had one nerd spot, and Gottfried got it.
Right. One nerd spot. That's right. Like Pee Wee said, Paul said he's looking around. He said, well, there's another nerd here. And he knows he had some sort of in.
He was like best friends with a producer or something.
Yeah, so he knew he was done there. But so he never did do
Ernest,
SNL.
I love Gilbert Gottfried too.
Oh yeah,
I do too. Have you guys ever heard that story that Gilbert tells about his SNL audition?
No,
it's a pretty funny story. I think it's. Have you seen the Gilbert Gottfried documentary? It might be in that. I can't remember where I heard the story, but
other than the aristocrats, no.
So at Gilbert Gottfried's SNL audition, this was the season that what's his face, Lorne Michaels was not a part of. So at the audition, it was Jean. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Jean Dumont and Woody Allen is actually in the theater, I guess, or wherever where they're doing the auditions. And Gilbert does his whole shtick, with the funny voice, and nobody looks up at him. I guess, like we're saying, like he knew somebody. He was gonna get cast no matter what. Mm-hmm. So the Woody and the other guy are just like not looking at him. And then at the end, Woody looks up and says, is he a Native American? And then that was it. That was the only comment on Gilbert Gottfried's was Woody that Woody Allen voice, I guess. And I don't think he was trying to be. I don't think Woody was making a joke.
That's hilarious.
Obviously, I'm not telling the story as funny as Gilbert tells it. But,
the idea that you think that Gilbert's Native American is hilarious.
Right.
Well, because I think you look at Gilbert
Gottfried.
And
how is that even relevant?
You look at Gilbert Gottfried and you
it's
say,
not.
What is that?
Right,
what is that exactly? Yeah. But, because he's pretty odd. But okay, so after that, Pee Wee started appearing on the Gong Show. He found that to be an outlet for his creativity. And on the Gong Show, he would come on and he had a Native American. It's funny that this should come at this point.
Connects to his
because he had a Native American character that he played. And
or something like that.
And it got a huge response. I guess he won the Gong Show with it, maybe once or twice.
He won with his partner.
He won with the sound effects a couple times,
and they were invited back.
Yeah, but they
had the AM and PM Gong Show back then, so they got to do it twice.
Wow,
I did not realize
trippy.
that.
I forgot. Yeah, I either didn't know that or forgot it. One or the other.
Before watching this documentary, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, I had watched the Pee Wee Gong Show appearances, and it mentioned it on YouTube.
Okay.
Coincidentally.
Yeah.
Chuck Barris was busy working for the CIA, right?
That's right.
Have his days free.
What is that movie? Catch Me If You Can? Is that what it was?
Well, he said that on the Gong Show, he was doing limited special missions. So it would be
again connecting back to conceptual art. I don't know if maybe that stuff is true. I don't know, but to me, I think maybe Chuck Barris was.
I think it's
also playing a character.
Yeah. Well, I'm just surprised that dance he did hasn't come back. because that was
Pee Wee dance or
I
Chuck
love that
Barris
dance.
or
Chuck
Gene
Barris.
the dancing
Paris
machine.
dance.
his little gangster dance that he did.
when they did when Mike Myers did the redo, he didn't do the Chuck Barris dance
He
because
probably.
that would have been.
Oh
you
no,
know-
no. Well, he didn't play Chuck Barris. He played
No,
a different
I'm
character
aware.
altogether. Yeah,
I'm aware.
but I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, so finally, Pee Wee, he takes his, that didn't work out. He said it was fortuitous because it was racist as hell. I think he said in his own estimation that would have been terrible. That'd have been a really bad thing to be remembered for as a
footnote.
Native American character. But so he found his niche finally. Well, we should backtrack a little bit. You can see at different parts in the documentary where he takes bits and pieces of his life and incorporates it into the Pee Wee Herman character. And one of them was that he had a partner named Gus. And a lot of the vocal inflections and things like that he exaggerates and says in his routine as Pee Wee came from Gus, actually. The way he kind of grunts his voice and stuff like that. So that's one thing. These things came together.
Was it Gus or Guy?
Guy.
Guy.
You're right.
You're
Thanks,
right.
Lise. It is Guy.
Just checking.
Guy.
I was like, wait a minute, who's Gus?
So they had a short-term relationship. He had a brief period of time where he came out as homosexual, in his not so public life yet or anything, but he had this relationship with Guy, and then
They lived together. It wasn't like super short. I mean, it felt like it went on for a few years.
But then it was over,
But
and then
he
Pee Wee kind of went
ended
back
it because he felt
or Paul went back.
he wanted his career.
Correct.
He
Correct.
felt that the relationship was taking him in a direction that he didn't want to go, that wasn't going to be good for his career.
Yeah, I
So
got the
he
sense
ended
that
the
he felt he was
relationship.
losing his identity, right? He felt.
I also felt like Guy was, effectively speaking, the love of his life.
He kind of
And that no one else was going to live up to that relationship, even though he didn't seem to regret ending the relationship overall.
and Guy passed away from AIDS, I think.
He passed away from AIDS in, I guess, the 80s, maybe early 90s.
It seemed like after they broke up, right? It seemed.
Oh,
like
yes, many
they
years.
broke up, and then years
Like
later,
maybe 10 or 12 years.
Yeah,
I don't have that timeline. If anybody does, feel free to send us a message. But yeah, he did see Guy again right before he died, literally like the day before he died, within 24 hours.
Yeah.
He went to visit him in the hospital. This was the first time he'd seen him since they broke up. You could see in his face that he was like really devastated.
Right.
But I kind of think I got the feeling, and this is just me, shoving some empathy at it. It may be completely unrealistic, but I feel like even though he did have other relationships, the majority of them did not live up to his relationship with Guy. And while he didn't necessarily regret it, it was easy for him to be just by himself.
Yeah.
It was easier.
But
that
seems
was
like
the feeling that I got from it. Was unsaid, but I
Pee
felt
Wee
that.
had these things. He was a fan of Buster Keaton, Pippi Longstockings, a character that appeared in the Pippi Longstocking series, I guess. And all these things came together to comprise. I keep calling him Pee Wee. We got to separate Paul from Pee Wee, but all these things that were iconic to Paul manifested itself in Pee Wee. He got a role in an early Cheech and Chong movie where he played a very memorable character in that. But then he took that and he took it to the stage, like the Whiskey a Go-Go, the Troubadour, these things on the Hollywood Strip, these venues. He started off in a smaller venue where he started this play, Pee Wee's Playhouse, I guess they called it at the time. And all these, it became, it had Phil Hartman in it as Captain. Was it Captain Jack or something, or Captain
Carl?
Captain Carl. And it had characters that would later end up on his children's show for Saturday morning. But it blew up. that was his shining moment. You know, you had people lined up around the block to get into this small venue, including celebrities. It was like the hottest ticket in town.
The venues kept getting bigger because they had to.
Yeah, and it's centered around a love story between Captain Carl and another
Miss Yvonne, right?
Miss Yvonne. See, I don't know the secondary characters the way that you do.
There was there was an actor playing.
I just know because I just watched the doc.
Right.
When Pee Wee's Playhouse came out, we were all young adults. We were like 20-ish.
19, 20, 21.
Yeah. And did it have, for y'all, did it have that same sort of, like as a young adult?
Saturday mornings, I'd be nursing hangovers.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, Philip was not up.
I love the movie, but I did not watch the TV series that often.
And I was completely unaware of it. One of the things is my friends and I would go to the club on Saturday night or to the movies. And I really, kind of stopped watching that Saturday morning TV. The first time I saw Pee Wee's Playhouse was an episode where Pee Wee and his friend put mirrors on their shoes so they could see up Miss Yvonne's dress so he could see her panties.
So that's not actually the Playhouse. That's you're speaking of the show. That was actually part of the theater. The
live show.
The live show. But it was on HBO. Yeah, it was on
Saturday
HBO.
Morning.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
This was on Saturday morning. I was, eating some cereal, watching TV. I happened to catch a couple minutes of it.
That was the HBO show, though, not the CBS show.
It's not what they put on for kids, I guess.
Okay.
Right. I don't think they would have had the mirrors for the kids.
We didn't have HBO.
Well,
we did not have a single.
Really?
Can I finish something?
Yes, go ahead.
We did not have HBO. This was on Pee Wee's Playhouse on Saturday morning.
Maybe.
It had to be. I don't know how else I would have seen it.
I don't know either.
What happened was they did the mirrors to look up her dress, and the joke was, I'm not wearing any panties. So now that I say that, maybe it was on HBO, but I do not have a clue how I saw it because we didn't have that shit.
So did that kind of immediately turn you off to Pee Wee?
I thought it was hilarious.
You thought it was hilarious?
I love weird shit, and I thought that was really funny.
You thought that was funny? Okay.
Interesting. That it was a children's show, to be totally honest.
Right. That would not seem like a kid show to me. See, I have that same memory, but
but most kids that would totally go over their head. You know? Yes. Except for like little perverts like my younger brother. And he knows who he is. He was a pervert.
Well, the show did allude to the fact that there were things on Pee Wee's Playhouse that were somewhat mature for the time slot. Like they had Miss what's her name again?
Yvonne.
Yvonne riding a Bronco bull.
Yeah, and that was definitely on Saturday morning TV.
She jumped off the Bronco bull and said something.
Yeah, and while
it was just like one of those horses outside. You'd see outside the grocery store and put a quarter in.
You're right, around a Bronco bull.
But it went really fast.
Right.
Pee Wee marrying the bowl of fruit salad. I think they talked about in the documentary quite a bit, and I think that's another kind of more. It's definitely
adult
it's adult humor, but it's not private parts. I guess
it's not overtly.
Right. Yeah. And I really think it's great when
it's definitely
children,
gay coded.
Right.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
It's definitely gay coded.
Somewhat.
The marrying the fruit salad, and then he had the extra wing made out of fruitcakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he did like throw those little bonbons in, but I also really like when children's programming has more adult humor in it. Like for instance, in Madagascar, when the lion attacks the zebra, and they're playing the music from Wild Kingdom.
Yeah, that's
funny.
And let me tell you, we're sitting there in the theater laughing our asses off because that's just funny. And some little kid in our theater yells, "Don't laugh! He's attacking him. He's eating his friend," which of course just made us laugh all the harder. So I'm sure those parents loved that they had to explain that shit to their kid.
Yeah. I mean, I think it speaks to kind of like, actually, this ties back to my now 3-year-old movie Manbaby, trying to like make art that is accessible, right? So it's not so much about, for me at least, and why I respond to that, it's not so much it's like, oh, adult humor for kids or kids humor for adults. It's like, how do you tell a story that's accessible to somebody in, Africa and somebody in Sweden and America? How do you make the most accessible thing? And I think something like that, like
this, you want to do this.
Right. So something like that in Madagascar, or something like, the building a room of fruit salad. It's like you can see, if you're a queer person, you can think that's funny for that. But it's also, as a 5-year-old, it's just funny to see people building something out of fruitcake. Like, it's just funny.
Right.
So
And really, a lot of straight adults in Middle America whose kids are watching this show probably wouldn't have clocked that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just watched another thing that I just watched. I think I'm getting the name wrong when I say this, but maybe I'm getting it right. The Day the Earth Blew Up, the new Looney Tunes movie.
Oh,
highly recommend it.
I saw
Highly
that.
recommend it. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think it's really funny. I think it really is like an accessible movie. Like it's kind of for kids. It's kind of for adults. It's just like just a good script. It's a good screenplay. So.
Is it like the regular old school Looney Tunes character?
Yeah. It's not Space Jam. It's Porky and Daffy, and they have to save their house. They have to get a job.
Okay.
And meanwhile, there is an alien invasion happening while they're trying to save their house. And there's a bubblegum factory, and Porky falls in love with Petunia. It's pretty funny. It's pretty good. I'd give it a recommend.
The Day the Earth Blew Up.
And the adult.
I think that is the right name.
Am I getting that right, Lisa? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That seems right in my head, but
yes, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. That's what it's called.
Cool.
The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie.
All right, so I don't think we need to cover the movie because we did a really good job of covering the movie, but that was the next step. Once this Pee Wee Playhouse play blew up in Hollywood, it just led one thing to another. Finally, he got this script. We talked extensively about that on the Pee Wee's Big Adventure episode. So go back and listen to that if you get a chance. You can find that in our catalog. But
and hear me again.
Yeah, right. Get to hear Tim Lighttell again. Go back to yesteryear. But so here we go. So the big revelation of the movie, there were a couple things. The one thing was we were to believe or not to know that Pee Wee was or not Pee Wee. There I go again. That Paul was homosexual, that he was gay, and that he had spent most of his adult life keeping that from the public, and the toll that took on him. And so this is Pride Month, right? So we thought it would be a good idea to cover this during Pride Month, just like HBO probably had the same reasoning.
Right.
And I feel like that the whole reason he did this was to try to come clean. He knew he was sick, even though no one else did. He wanted not just that, but not just his, being gay, but his diagnosis. He wanted. Well, let me finish my
Okay, I am.
So he got to the point, he got to the point where, all these things, he was doing the documentary, he did an extensive amount of work. It was almost finished. And then he cut it off because you get the impression that he got uncomfortable with giving that narrative to the director of the film. His name was Stephen Wolf or something. And then he cut it off. Matt Wolf.
Yeah, and I want to say here that I don't think he would have trusted anyone.
Yeah.
That he had major trust issues.
He said as much.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there was very much a sense in the air that this project was not going to get finished because of these reservations that he had. But that was one revelation that he didn't necessarily want to reveal, apparently. And the other thing was the thing that was hanging over the latter half of his career was this arrest he had in a movie theater, an adult theater where
in Florida.
it was a decent
Sarasota?
exposure chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Yeah, he had come home to help his family with something. And he
His
was
dad, I think.
there. He was also taking a break from, I'm sorry, Aaron.
To help with his dad, I think his health had gone down.
And he was taking a little break from Pee Wee, just a refresher, if you will. And I want to say that I think somebody set him up.
Well,
Mhm.
I mean, just based on some of the stuff, he went as Paul Reubens. He had control over who Paul Reubens was, and Paul Reubens and Pee Wee were completely separate persons. It was almost in a sense dual personality.
well, they probably captured.
But
arrested a lot of
I
people.
have to wonder. I don't know, because I mean, were they regularly raiding that particular location? Some of the stuff that was said afterwards, and some of the charges that he refuted, even though he did plead no contest, I felt like they were inflammatory and maybe even directed at him. And I have to wonder if someone said, hey, if you guys want to arrest Paul Reubens, go to this theater. He'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's such a history, I think, in this country, especially in the South, especially probably in Florida, especially probably in that area with what we know about circus folk being there, right? There's a history of harassment by the authorities of people who are different. And that, I think, doesn't matter. If you're different and you're famous and rich, or if you're different and you're poor, there's a difference sometimes. But I mean, yeah, whether it was a tip off or not or whatever, it's in my mind it seems like a very kind of
and
typical harassment.
Paul did have major feuds with people. I mean, he held a grudge.
Right.
It seemed like he was hard.
I never realized how deep the Phil Hartman feud went.
Yeah,
I saw Hartman on that Howard Stern clip that they had in the doc.
Right, where you kind of turned on him. Yeah. That was kind of sad. But I feel like the public really doesn't give a shit about something with a victimless crime like that. That thing back then was a lot more gravitas than it would today. People would be like, good Lord, probably,
oh, what?
Sure.
Who gives a shit? But it really was a product at the time. But then something much more serious came up later. They're potentially more serious when he was accused of holding child pornography.
Yes.
And the documentary does a good job, I think, of laying out. I mean, the amount of physical media that he had, that was pretty low, but they actually went through a lot of the material. It sure didn't look like, and there was no finding really. It boiled down to a single photograph of someone. It was like a head
from a magazine.
It was like a headshot. It wasn't even, it was like a
Well,
headshot.
I think they just didn't show us the whole picture.
Anyway, whatever you think about people collecting pornography, there was nothing. There really was nothing found in the pornography that would suggest child pornography.
It was mostly like vintage homoerotic art and magazines, I think.
Right. So, you may want to pillory him for having pornography, but I think a lot of people have pornography. So
that's not the only thing he collected. He was like a major collector of a lot of things.
Yeah, that I did not know.
Yeah.
I mean, and
almost a hoarder kind of level, it seems.
Right.
Correct.
And we literally have pictures of myself and my brother, my younger brother, my cousin, and my two cousins, both boys, all in a bathtub together. But we were like, I was like maybe 3,
Yeah.
But and that kind of thing could be utilized as a hammer against someone. You know, I mean, my mother took pictures of my nephews running around the house completely naked, and their little members are right there in the photo, and she put them in the photo album.
Right.
You know, and I mean, many people have pictures like that of their small children. We have naked pictures of my brother because he loved to take it all off and run around. And it was cute. That, thank goodness he didn't have videos, because my mom would have videoed his naked butt.
Anyway, do you guys have any more input to put in about the doc?
Well, again, you know, I think for the little bit of Pee Wee getting harassed, I mean, yeah, I do think, I think the overall picture you get, like we've all kind of said, he did seem like a difficult person to work with. He did seem kind of, and yes, I think like, very possible if somebody wanted to, you know, weaponize something like that they would, but also I just think, there's just a long history of harassment of people who are different, and so it's a little bit of both, maybe, who knows. But my kind of, again, overall sentiment of like his conceptual art, I just thought it was really cool that, you know, he got to make this while he was dying, and he got, you know, it's it is really a nice capstone to a really interesting career, and a really great artist. Really, you know,
we should shout out his art
influential to me in my
director guy
life.
too. Was Panter? Was it George Panter? Something like that.
I can't remember.
Also, sorry, Aaron.
That basically created all the Playhouse art to Pee Wee's specifications.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I do want to
say,
guy
had a white beard in the movie.
Knowing what we know now, I feel like, in a sense, Pee Wee was trying to write his own eulogy.
Yeah.
He knew he was
I think
sick.
so.
Yeah. So this for him, and that's one of the reasons why, okay, let's face it, he was just a control bitch. But I think that's one of the reasons why also he was so argumentative, if you will, about control, because he kept wanting more and more control.
All right. So we're hosts here, but we're also guests here on the Antisocial Network.
Right.
And we try to keep our shows to an hour so it fits into the programming scheme of the network. But we'd like to do our Elite 8 mini bracket here at the end, if you will indulge us, Tim. And I don't think we were doing this the first time you were on, or even the last. But
it's like a Ginger or Marianne kind of series of questions.
Right.
All right. I'm intrigued.
So we'll all vote on it, and we'll try to come up with what we would call the most interesting revelation from Pee Wee as himself.
That's the topic for the Elite 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
The most interesting revelation. Okay.
What are the first two that...
I can't read that, so you're gonna have to.
Okay. So So the first matchup is Paul could be hard to work with versus he went to school with the Knight Rider and Katie Seagal. Okay. Which is the most fascinating revelation.
For me, it's got to be Knight Rider, I think.
Yeah, okay. I definitely did not know that before, that all three of them were in the same class.
Okay. Right.
It's not surprising, you know, that he's hard to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No.
What do you got, Lise?
I'm gonna go with Knight Rider too.
Okay, so Knight Rider.
I mean, I was a little bit torn, but I get what they're saying. Were you gonna throw a vote to Paul was hard to work with, or did we have a sweep? Not that I know where the broom is.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna make it a sweep. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's your birthday, Phil?
Yes. It was actually yesterday.
Oh, happy belated.
Yeah.
Born on No King's Day.
Yeah. Yeah,
No
that's
King's
what we're calling it.
That's what
we're
the
not
protest
calling
is.
it. Right. And that's where we went to the protest. And we're going to be going to the Pride protest coming up towards the end of this month, June 26th, I think.
All right.
You're going to a pro Pride event, you mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
When you say Pride protest,
Well, they are including a protest element
Mhm.
in the Pride, celebration.
All right,
So
here's
that
the
is what
second
democracy
revelation.
looks like.
Yep, exactly.
Paul was a recurring guest on the Gong Show versus Paul's career started in the circus.
I'm going to
That
say
may
I
be
knew about the Gong Show, so I'm going to go circus. It was a bigger revelation for me.
I think I might have to agree. Circus for me too was more of a surprise.
Yeah.
So that's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with the Gong Show, but the circus moves on.
Okay.
All right. So here's our third matchup.
Did
Paul
you
modeled
know, did
Pee
you
Wee's
know about the
voice
Gong
after his
Show
partner
beforehand,
died.
Bill?
If I did, I had forgotten, but I did watch the Gong
Okay.
Show a lot, so I'm pretty sure I probably saw him at some point.
Just
but,
didn't.
Yeah, but you
clock
wouldn't have
for
recognized.
Pee Wee
Yeah,
Herman.
yeah, I
But
did say, oh,
yeah. I had recently been watching them, just totally unrelated.
yeah.
Sure.
Paul modeled Pee Wee's voice after his partner Guy versus Paul was in the closet for most of his adult life.
It would be the voice model for me. I always thought that was I wouldn't have expected that was from another person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely the more surprising of the two.
I got to go with the closeted life for me. And also, we did not in any way touch on the cross-dressing because he actually did a significant amount of cross-dressing earlier on.
I think that's
Good looking Cher. He really looked like Cher.
Yeah, but no, I think he just did that. I mean, yes, it was part of his performance art, but being a cross-dresser is performance art. I know. I watch RuPaul's Drag Race a lot.
Okay.
And I don't just watch Drag Race. I dive deeper.
Pee Wee was dancing in heels too. In the doc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he puts on women's heels
And he's
to
in
dance.
backwards.
Right. Well, and he was wearing were they wedges or heels?
Well, he had the platforms when he did the
Right.
tequila dance, but
Right.
Famous
later
tequila
on he's
dance,
doing a
right.
different dance with the
Well, I'm gonna go with
stiletto heels.
Like his mom's shoes.
I'm gonna go with
He said
Guy.
they were his mom's shoes.
We're gonna make it Guy. So,
Okay.
So the
That's
final
moving
matchup
on.
is
I'm guessing.
Police investigation exonerated Paul for child pornography versus the famous movie theater incident.
I don't think either one was a revelation for me.
Okay.
Yeah, no revelations there. I mean, I guess I guess the child pornography is more shocking, but yeah, I knew of both. I don't know how to decide that one.
I lean towards the movie theater simply because I had no clue, and all of a sudden, and it tanked Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It tanked his career. It affected him for quite some time. He ended up, hiding out in the homes of friends.
You didn't remember when that happened?
No, here's my thing.
I did.
Here's
yes,
my thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's the reason I put it in there. Because when they believe, Pee Wee said this himself. They believe that when there's smoke, there's fire. So people might not know that he was exonerated by the actual investigation because there's so much noise to the contrary out there. That's the reason I put that in there. And the other was famous. Okay, so we're at 1-1, right?
I'll go with the exoneration, I guess.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that too.
People would be less likely to know anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
Yeah, something that wasn't really publicized. I was unaware that he was investigated for child pornography in any way until this documentary.
Right. Well, they kind of convicted him in the court of public opinion, and I think that's part of the reason he did.
But that was like mostly, I think, localized in California.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it seemed.
I think it was a bigger national story.
No,
than that.
I didn't hear about it. Now, to be fair, at that time, especially, and even through most of my life, I was on news avoidance.
Well, yeah, Lisa hated.
Yeah,
she
I
hates Fox,
hated-
CNN. She hates.
I
every kind
hate
of
the news. Period.
She didn't watch the OJ.
Yeah, it's just negative after negative after negative after negative.
We
I had
stopped
to fight
watching
her
TV
for
news
control
here.
to change her.
2002, we stopped watching TV news here in the house.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, people really haven't gone back fully.
Yeah,
so.
and I say this, and I say it with all seriousness. I get my news from Comedy Central.
All right, here we go to final. Knight Rider in Pee Wee's class versus his circus experience. Tim?
I would. I'm gonna go circus again.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. That's 2.
I agree.
So it's 3.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So circus moves on.
because
I have
that
a feeling
manifested
circus
in
is
the
gonna
movie.
win.
Right.
Who feels that the fact that he was at odds with his original writing team had a very negative effect on Pee Wee's circus adventure?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Because that is of all the Pee Wee stuff, of the Pee Wee oeuvre, that's my least favorite Pee Wee for sure.
Yeah.
I think.
And we
it
didn't
suffered because
mention
of
the
that.
longest screen kiss of all time either.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
That was just
That was huge.
stupid.
All right, so here we go. Guy being the inspiration to a lot of his character, Pee Wee's character, versus being exonerated for
Child pornography.
the charges. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, somebody else
exonerated.
being the inspiration for the voice, I think, is
Oh, yeah.
a revelation.
Yeah, same for me.
So I knew the other.
Right.
You're exonerated.
I don't know. I
I would
mean,
still be the guy voice.
I don't want to be surprised that he was exonerated, so let's go with Guy.
Okay, so Guy moves on, and I'll make it a sweep.
I would love to hear recordings of the originator,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
I
here we
wish
go.
they'd thrown in some recordings of that, because I know they have to exist, because he did,
Well, here we go.
Yeah.
Sunday night or Monday night, opening day, the NCAA finals, same night.
Mhm.
Here we go. Circus, Paul Reubens' circus experience versus Guy, his partner Guy, being the inspiration for his
Oh, that's a good matchup.
Mhm.
Huh. What was the biggest revelation?
Still, it's going to be circus for me.
Yeah, I guess circus. It feels like I should know it because of Big Top Pee Wee.
Yeah, it all makes
but
sense.
I didn't know that. So yeah,
What are you
I'm
gonna
gonna go circus.
I don't know. I was hoping you'd say first, and then I'd just, go with the crowd.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with circus.
Okay. I'll agree. I mean, I think they're kind of the fact that Pee Wee's voice and mannerisms were at least somewhat, maybe the inspiration was Guy.
Yeah.
you
All right,
know?
so the circus,
And then the characterization developed over time.
the circus is the
But
champion.
Pee Wee's still probably 95% Pee Wee and 5% Guy's voice, right?
Probably.
Right. Those are still big revelations, though. I feel like both
Yeah.
of those I had no idea, and as
Yeah,
a big Pee
the
Wee
circus
fan,
stuff.
that was definitely interesting to learn.
And that does make the circus movie make more sense. But at the same time, it was like the whole Pollyanna idea had resurfaced.
All right, we got
And
1
they-
minute to
they
keep it
knew
under
that
an hour.
Pollyanna
Yeah, so where
wasn't
can our
good for the
where can our
first-
viewers and listeners find you, Tim?
Hey, just check me out at manbabymovie.com and check out my movie Manbaby Movie.
All
It's
right,
Do
good.
check out Manbaby.
Definitely watchable.
it's awesome.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
If you like
Yeah.
Pee Wee, you'll
fun as
probably
always.
dig Manbaby too.
Yep.
That's a good
Okay.
point. Yeah. Oh, I was typing a message.